Welcome in, everyone. Today we are diving into a truly fascinating, honestly almost theatrical display of internet drama, logic puzzles, and, well, human fragility. In this explainer, we're going to unpack an event that went down in a localized forum called System.dll, which was entirely focused on predicting the numbers 3 lottery. But as you'll see, what starts off as this serious, hyper-analytical numbers game very quickly devolves into an incredible case study. It is literally a masterclass in what happens when massive egos collide head-on with undeniable reality. So to hook you right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself this. What actually happens when a group of hyperlogical analysts realize their entire reality is a trap? See, the people in this forum didn't just casually guess lottery numbers. No way. They presented themselves as absolute masterminds, wrapping all their predictions in this incredibly dense, scientific-sounding language. We are talking about some seriously lofty egos here, and spoiler alert, they are about to experience a spectacular crash landing.
All right, let's jump right into Part 1, the complete collapse of preconditions.
Okay, so the setup for our story takes place on the night of August 25th. The daily lottery results have just been announced, and the winning number is 186. Now, out of the 5 core participants in the forum, not a single one guessed correctly. Nobody hit it. But instead of just saying, "Ah, man, I was wrong," and admitting defeat, they hid behind high-minded vocabulary. They immediately started tossing around terms like expected value, statistical inevitability, and entropy, just to protect their pride. Basically, they constructed this hyper-logical mathematical shield to justify a literal 0% success rate.
But then comes the massive plot twist. Up until this very moment, the participants were operating under a massive assumption. They genuinely believed they were investing the forum game master's actual real-world money. But right at midnight, the game master steps in and completely pulls the ladder out from under them. It's a shocking revelation of a totally different reality.
The game master posts this at exactly midnight. "I only asked you to write your predictions. I never said I would purchase them. Do not use malicious words to mislead." Wow. I mean, talk about pulling the rug out. With just a single sentence, the game master completely destroyed the foundational premise these participants were standing on. They weren't high-stakes financial advisors managing someone's bankroll. Actually, scratch that. They were just guys posting numbers on a message board.
That brings us to Part 2, harsh slaps from viewers.
So, along with dropping that midnight bombshell, the game master temporarily opened the forum up to outside viewers. And let me tell you, they did not hold back. Viewer 01 immediately starts roasting the participants, completely dismantling their carefully crafted personas one by one. They point out that Takato tries way too hard to sound cool, but it's just impossible to read. Oji-san is way too long-winded, and Ephemera is just overly edgy, literally acting like an anime character. They even expose Nihai for secretly deleting bad posts, and finish off the whole thing by mocking Koreize's weird username.
Then enter viewer 02, who delivers this absolutely devastating quote. They mock the participants' complex jargon by throwing it right back in their faces, calling their performance an irrational error log of 0 yen recovery and completely unsubstantial fractional data. Viewer 02 just perfectly hits the nail on the head, pointing out the intense irony of acting like absolute geniuses while actually generating 0 results.
0. That is the absolutely crucial point here. Despite all the structural hypotheses and polar shifts they claim to be analyzing, their actual, real-world financial return was a giant 0. It's just a hilarious juxtaposition against their complex scientific jargon. They were acting like Wall Street quants, but they were literally netting 0 yen.
Moving on to Part 3, speedy apologies and true selves.
So, how do you react when you are publicly called out by the game master and roasted to a crisp by anonymous viewers? Well, the masks start to slip. Let's look at the timeline for the user Koreize. At 1:18 a.m., he tries to play the cool lone wolf, brushing off the viewers and mocking the other participants for overthinking. But exactly 1 minute later, at 1:19 a.m., the game master issues a strict formal warning to him for attacking the viewers. By 1:45 a.m., Koreize completely folds. He issues this lightning-fast apology. He instantly submits to authority, dropping the tough guy act the absolute second his standing in the forum is threatened.
And then there's the user Ephemera. Now, Ephemera usually speaks strictly in this heavily armored, robotic, analytical tone. He writes these massive blocks of text filled with sci-fi-sounding jargon about structural hypotheses, entropy dissipation, and polarity shifts. It's a very deliberate, overly intellectual persona that he's built up.
But when he sees Korarezi's super-fast, completely hollow apology to the Game Master, Ephemera's mask completely slips. He drops all the robotic jargon and just replies with casual internet slang. Not actually sorry, lol. The facade completely breaks. Underneath the hyperlogical vocabulary, he's just a normal internet user laughing at some forum drama.
Finally, let's look at Part 4, the 5-axis synchronization debate.
So at this point, their illusions are broken and their personas are shattered. Desperate to rebuild their egos, the participants dive headfirst into a fierce debate over their next predictions. The group totally fractures into two distinct philosophical camps regarding the number 5. On one side, we have the 5-axis statistical group made up of Takato, Oji-san, and Nihai. On the exact opposite side, we have the anti-5 group consisting of Ephemera and Korezi.
This right here is the core of their ideological war. Takato argues that choosing the number 5 as the core of their next bet is pure math, a statistical inevitability based on Wednesday draw data and median values. But Ephemera fiercely pushes back. He accuses Takato and the others of mindless groupthink and herd mentality, insisting on a completely different model just to avoid the crowd.
And here is the ultimate punchline of this whole ordeal. Despite the absolute chaos of the night, the strict warnings from the Game Master, the brutal roasts from the viewers, and their own masks publicly slipping, nobody backed down. Everyone stubbornly locked in their original predictions. Dakota's group locked in firmly on their 5 strategy. Ephemera proudly locked in on 709 to avoid the herd. And Korase stuck to his simple 603. Not a single person was willing to compromise or admit someone else might be right.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, this perfectly maps how these hyperlogical minds process trauma and embarrassment. Step 1, ignore the embarrassment of being exposed. Step 2, double down on the complex logic that failed you the first time. And step 3, stubbornly refuse to change your predictions. Rather than just admitting they looked foolish, they use their complex systems as a defense mechanism to insulate themselves from reality.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. We all curate versions of ourselves online, right? But when the pressure drops, the preconditions of your reality totally collapse, and your flawless logic fails in front of an audience, how quickly does your own mask slip? Definitely something to think about the next time you find yourself digging your heels into an internet debate. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.